Now to understand control template concept, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more window into the existing project. So I'm going to add here a new window. Let's call it as window 10 here, and let's set window 10 as a startup. So I'm going to go to app.xaml and quickly set up here window 10 as a startup form. And in window 10.xaml, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply define a button in the UI. So I'll put up here a tag called as button. We'll have a name here, let's call it as btn. Let's have height here, let's have width here, and let's have content over here. In case we need it, let's call it as click me. And then what we want to do is on a button click, we will end up writing something called as some hi hello code. So there will be button underscore click here. Let's go back to the code behind and let's write down simple hi alert code over here. So I'll put up message box.show, and then there will be simple test put up on a screen here. Now let's try compile this project and let's run this project. So there's nothing great that we have done in this project. Still, we will try to run this project and see what appears on the screen. So here we go. So it appears on a screen now, and then if I click on a button, it simply says test. So now what we want to do is we would like to change the appearance of the button, which is by default block shape button. So what we'll do is we will try to specify to the content presenter, that is whenever this button is going to get drawn on a screen, I want button appearance to be templated now. So I'll mention here button will have a template defined, and that is going to be control template. And in a control template, I would like to define the control to appear more like an ellipse. I'll again specify ellipse here will have something called as height. By default, we'll pick up 80. It will have width like 200, and it will have a field which is going to be, let's say, red color field. And we'll close this. Now if I run this project, let's see what happens. By default, there is a button. Button should turn to the ellipse now. So we just tried to change appearance of a button from a block shape to something that is called as an ellipse now. So see here, by default what you get is ellipse now on the screen. So now you will notice that it's not button, because had it been button, it's not ellipse overlaying on top of button. Had it been ellipse overlaying on top of button, if I would have clicked somewhere at the corner of the ellipse, it would have shown me click, as in it would have raised click and it would have shown me test in the message box. But then here it's an ellipse which is actually taking the appearance of button right now. So ultimately if I click on ellipse, what comes up on a screen is test right now. So here it's not ellipse on top of button, it is ellipse appearing as a button on a screen, because simply what we did is we tried to change the button's appearance to something called as ellipse. By simply specifying control template, ultimately we just try to override the property of template with respect to button, which comes somewhere from the base, and simply replace it with the help of ellipse. So defining your own kind of a control helps you, to have a or gain the specific shape specifically using control template concept. Now quick concern, quick question. Button has a property called as template. What if I have one more button here? So one more time what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down here something called as stack panel, which we already know. And what if I put one more button over here? So let's call it as button 2 over here. By default, we'll put some height, we'll put some width, and we'll put some content, which is going to be click me too. Now this particular button doesn't do anything. What if I really want it also to appear as a something called as ellipse? What I would have done then is I can simply copy paste this particular part and put it here in the second button. But this is not something which is going to work well for me. If it is same sort of appearance for every button I need, it's much better. That is, I can set this in the resources. Keep it in mind, this becomes a value for a property called as template. So why can't we do something like this? Why can't we just go and mention here somewhere in, let's say, either stack panel resources or window resources? I'll mention in window resources, whereas I am looking for defining some style specifically for a target type. Here I'll mention target type called as button, and I would like to use here a setter specifically for a property called as template. So I'm putting a value for a property called as template, just like we can put a value for a property called as height, width or background. And then what I'm looking for is the setter that we are trying to use should have a value, but it's not simple value. Had it been field value, height, width value, I would have mentioned value here itself. But the value itself is not simple, ABCD or 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a value which is going to be a template value like this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this somewhere in here then. So, and then I'm going to simply remove this particular button template from here. Now see to it as I have two buttons here, button 1 and button 2. Both the buttons have no, by default specification of any style or something. I specified all target type button in this current window should have or get this template. So if I run this code again, what we should see is two buttons with the same style called as ellipse style. So we have two buttons, and then first button if I click here, I'll get test. However, second button if I click, I don't get anything because second button we did not define the click event handler. Now see to it, I just mentioned here target type equal to button, button being a class. So in that case, if button is one class, what if I define some class by myself and ultimately that class I inherit from some control class? And then what if I define the look and feel for my control using control template concept? You will find out you can give shape to your own lookless controls or a class which comes from a control base. You will find out you can provide a look and feel by simply specifying control template. So it's very easy to deal with defining custom controls and defining custom look and feel to your existing controls. So control template concept works in this way because every control in WPF has got two sections. One is the visual and other one is the logic against it. So if control template concept is a bit clear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same concept to build custom control now. But then we are just going to use custom control and we'll use some sort of existing controls into it so that it will be clear to us like how to refer some controls which are not part of logical tree but which are part of visual tree. So more details in the next session.